everybody. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things, sketching. I know any of you have taken my classes or watched my videos. You know I talk a lot about not just how much I love sketching, which I do, but the importance of sketching as a potential transitional step into doing better paintings. That's really what I want to concentrate on today. Not just my love of sketching. It's not like eating your broccoli. It's not something that I'm suggesting you have to do. I'm just saying it's something you might want to think about doing as a way to make your life easier and more expressive as a painter. So a couple things I'm going to do is just walk you through my materials and then do a couple of quick, hopefully enjoyable exercises to show you how you might work sketching into your painting life as, again, as a way to make better paintings. First off, I never go anywhere without a sketchbook. That's just a habit of mine I've had since a child. When I was very little, a sketchbook and a drawing pencil was really my version of Linus's security blanket. Whenever I was really happy or upset or nervous or anxious or couldn't go to sleep, I would just grab my sketchbook and start drawing. And truthfully, nothing's changed. I still do it. And I keep a sketchbook by my bed. I don't say you have to do, but it's just something to think about. So when I wake up in the morning, I just start to doodle. And yeah, a lot of it's garbage, but there are some ideas there. So why I bring that up is, again, not a prescription, not something you have to do or even should do. It's just something you might want to think about. It is a way for me to enlarge the way I take in inspiration. So rather than just look at something outwardly, a sketchbook can also be a way of looking at landscapes internally. What you think about, what you dream about, what you remember. All of that stuff is very fertile ground for creativity and for potential paintings. And it's just a fun thing to do. So I'm going to quickly first just walk you through a couple of my sketchbooks to show you the kind of internal life I've got going on, and then how I use them or not as a springboard for potential paintings down the road. So what I think of as my sketchbooks are, they're not precious. I don't take care of them, if I'm honest. I have any number of them, hundreds, maybe more. I use them to just jot down ideas, things I think about, again, things I dream about, things I see. I'm driving in the car. Often I'll pull over and I'll just stop and do a quick sketch. If you have a sketchbook in your car, it's a great idea. As far as specifically what kind of sketchbooks I use, I probably should bring that up. It doesn't really matter. I think the important thing is to be comfortable. Grab something that works for you. I do typically use these sketchbooks made by Stillman and Byrne, the company. The reason is because, well, they're good quality, but they also come in a variety of sizes and styles. This is a hardcover, a beta series, which I like. You can draw on it, you can watercolor in it. It's cold pressed paper. I like rough surface more for more formal watercolors, but this takes color beautifully and pencil work beautifully, or charcoal or pastel if you work in those. It's a great surface. But they come in different sizes and types. This is a hardcover that I usually keep a stack of these in my studio. They're ring bound. I like these because they lie flat and you can tear out pages if you need to. They also, however, make quite small ones, more compact. When I travel or teach all around the country or overseas, you'll see me carrying these around a lot. They lie pretty flat too, even though they're not ring bound, but they're very, very handy. And you could just shove one in your backpack or your pocket if you've got a big coat or whatever. And yeah, again, I'm not precious about them or careful with them. They're tools. They're my friends. So yeah, I treat my friends badly. That doesn't sound good. But I just mean they're casual, like an old pair of shoes. I don't think of the drawings I do in my sketchbook as precious in any way. I use my sketchbooks as a visual diary and as a place where I get my thinking done, subconsciously and consciously. I'll jot down ideas, I'll make notes to myself, I'll work out ideas for paintings. This was a bridge in New York State. I was driving by with a friend and just stopped and did this sketch very quickly. I'll get into this later, but this starts to hint at what I'm driving at. Visual information, and if you work from photographs, that type of visual information doesn't always translate exactly, of course, to a good painting. I don't always do sketches because I intend to do a painting of them, but I do always have that in the back of my mind. This might make a good painting, it might not. It might be the basis for something better down the road. But I will talk about this later in depth, but this particular little sketch is a good example of sort of my sketch thinking process. I start working out the shapes of the composition, the energies, the angularities, and primarily the values. You can sketch in color, and I'm going to do an example of that later. I tend most often, probably 8 times out of 10 at least, to sketch in black and white without color, just in values, just so that you can start to understand the locations of darks, lights, and midtones, the 3 basic values in which I always work. So this was a beautiful bridge on Yaquina Bay, and I just thought instantly this might make a good painting. The actual scene was much more complex than this, so a sketch was a good way for me to sort of distill what I thought was important, edit out what I thought wasn't, and begin to think about making a painting someday down the road. And it's a good example because I did this about 1.5 years ago, and I just did a painting of it the other day. These sketches in my sketchbooks may lay around for weeks, months, sometimes years, but what they do, why I recommend sketching, what you think about, what inspires you, is they are more than anything else a gateway to your creative energy, your creative impulse. Without thinking or caring too much, you can just jot down what inspires you. What was it about that scene? In our first lesson, I talked about how I design a painting, the hierarchy of what I think is important. And the number one thing is, what is your intent? Why did you decide to paint this? What's the story you want that painting to tell? What's the message you want to get across? A quick, grubby, informal little sketch, I think the best thing that can do is it turns off for a moment that critical, analytical thinking mind that we all have, which can be our friend, but can also get in our way. We can trip over it a lot. And what a sketch, an immediate sketch helps you do, helps me do, is just get my inspiration directly from my head to my heart, through my hand, onto the surface of the paper in the most immediate and informative way possible. There are other ways of sketching. People use tablets and digital means. I have nothing against them. I know sketches can seem kind of old school. I think that's fine. It's maybe a justified critique, but I don't think it's all that valid. I think sketching is timeless. It's just the most immediate way to get your feelings down. So here you can see I take notes to myself. I don't know what I'm doing here. Designing a house that's never going to get built. Working out hypothetical scenery. Here I had some sort of a concept for a painting that was just shapes, darks, and lights, and I thought I could work with that, so I started to develop it into an actual scene, and then this became an actual painting later. Here I dreamt up a more abstract composition of shapes and began to develop it into quasi-representational elements. This became a painting. All of these don't become paintings, needless to say. That's what's great about these. You don't spend that much time doing them. So if nothing happens, you know, no problem. You always teach yourself something, or I do, when I do a sketch. This is a real place. It's the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco. Beautiful neoclassical building. And I was working out ways that I could approach it to make more of an experiential painting potential out of it. This is a case where the sketch was actually pretty nice. The painting I did of that wasn't. But that's okay. No harm, no foul. These were some other ideas I had that never became paintings, but may someday. Here's, of course, an example of a color sketch. This was just a memory. This is the house where I grew up. And yeah, I did actually take this a couple of years after I did this sketch and worked up a more formal or finished looking painting. Again though, even though it's in color, it's in minimal color. I'm going to talk about that later too. But again, these are just ideas. Here's an idea I had after visiting St. John the Divine Cathedral in New York. Just some angularities of light, shapes of midtone and dark. And there is something here which I've yet to develop into a painting, but I might. So I think what I'm really trying to say is when you do that, when you get these sparks of inspiration and you jot them down instantaneously, I could sit on this for a few years, come back to it, and I'm instantly drawn back to where I was when I did this and remember what I was feeling. And what I was feeling was the stark architectural rigidity of the space. These very strong horizontals and verticals were intercepted with this diagonal energies of light coming through. And that's what I sketched. It's just as simple as that. And it really did feel, for a lack of a better term, spiritual. And I think there's something there. And I know if one day I'm going to develop that into something. So yeah, I'm just taking you a little walking tour through my sketchbook. This was an imaginary scene I made up, but from a real place right here in Venice, California, the canals. I did do a very formalistic painting of this last year, but it was from this initial sketch. Really just working out ideas of composition of darks, lights, midtones, and light. Now, if you're of the mind, which I sometimes am, I just like to sit down and do a nice drawing. And that's what this was intended to be. This is the Ponte Vittorio in Rome, and I can draw fairly nicely. Most of my sketches are not. They're not intended to be. They're just ideas. They're just scrappy shapes. So this was intended to just be a tonal value study drawing, and it's nice enough for what it is. But I also did develop this about a year later into a finished painting. I honestly didn't intend to at the time, but it seemed like it deserved it, so I did. So yeah, you get the idea. I just work out ideas for myself that might become paintings, they might not. They're just thoughts.